Well, okay, I'm going to be very careful about how I tell this story. But remember how I mentioned back when my first match with the advertising thing.
Yeah.
Afterwards, after we'd finished, we were in the room that they gave us as like a locker room, and we were, and they were giving it, and they gave us beers, and it was like, I didn't know, like, oh, we get beers after shows, that's awesome, but we got beers, and there was a woman who was with one of the other wrestlers, and while we were sort of chatting, one of the other wrestlers who was there said, "Oh, you should get your tits out," and she did.
Whoa.
Now, yeah, like this is in the locker room, and it was like, and she again, I'm not going to name names because again, I don't recall exactly who was in the room, so I don't know who was directly involved. And it wasn't like she wasn't like she was forced into it. It wasn't like people grabbed her and ripped her top off or anything. She was, to my understanding, she did it willingly. Like it wasn't something that she was forced to do. But still, it was like that was like my first sort of interaction in a locker room scenario, and that was a bit of a culture shock to me because it wasn't like that, and that would never happen now. Thankfully,
No.
like it's very much sort of moved on. Again, I don't remember exactly who was in the room. I don't recall who said what or did what or whatever. So please don't. And I'm not going to name names. I don't want anyone to sort of try and kneel shit at me. But it was just like that was a very bunch of a culture shock, and there were sort of examples of like women getting, like not sort of not abused or not sort of not sort of not sexually assaulted, but some of the guys would be very sort of aggressive in courting women who would come to start off as training, and most of the time they didn't last possibly because of that. And that's changed a lot for the better. So in terms of like the Australian locker rooms, it is a lot better. And in terms of like the on-air product, I think also, I mean, there's always going to be a certain elements of like people are always going to be like, I'm not from here. Look at my crazy passport. There's always going to be a certain amount of like stuff that is not really sort of okay, but as long as the people involved are okay, like if someone plays it plays into a stereotype, and they're doing it willingly, and it's good heat, and they're happy with it, and everyone involved is okay with it, then there's always going to be that certain elements in wrestling. It's just inevitable. We can try and sort of weed out the coarser elements, and we can try and avoid it being the default. Like if someone comes in and they're Indian or or there's some sort of ethnicity, I think we're past the point where that becomes their gimmick. Yeah. Like as well, when I started, that was if you came in and you were Indian, well, that's your gimmick. You're an Indian, or or if you come in and you're Chinese or whatever, that would be your gimmick because that's all you needed because that's what people. Yeah, that was enough. It was only if you happened to be white straight male that you had to suddenly have to have something more interesting because you were default. So luckily we've sort of moved past that in Australian and internationally. So I'm very happy with that. Like I'm not like just when I came in, Australian wrestling was pretty not dead, but it was very much sort of a case where it would be it was at PCYCs and maybe the occasional club show, and we used to run Campbelltown, and like if we got 100 people, we were over the moon at that. So obviously as things have gotten better, we've also improved up in terms of numbers and like awareness and attention and all that. So I'm very happy with how wrestling's evolved, both in front of and behind the scenes.